Okay, hello everyone. Today's video module is to help teachers and teacher aides in writing and turning in your lesson plans. So I do want to go over some of the things that many of you who have taken the early childhood curriculum class already know about the California Preschool Curriculum Framework and how we use that and implement those into our lesson plans, how we teach kids, how children learn, how we observe them, and so on. For those of you who have done lesson plans but have not taken the course, a lot of this stuff is going to seem a little bit of familiar, but it is something that you will eventually learn when you do take the class. So this video module is just to do a quick overview of what what the curriculum framework is and how to utilize it for your own lesson plans. And we'll also go over some lesson plans examples, and we'll end the module with actually going on the Playground app and doing our own lesson plan. So the California Preschool Curriculum Framework is aligned with the California Preschool Learning Foundations, and it's designed to guide early childhood educators in implementing developmentally appropriate curriculum and instructional practices for children. So this framework is organized into several domains, and each domain with substrands that describe specific areas in learning. So that's literacy, math, science, and so on. So you'll hear a lot of buzzwords like the words domain and substrands and what they mean. So like I said, for those of you who haven't taken the course, a lot of these new buzzwords are going to be new to you. So just kind of try to keep up. I will be providing you with your own worksheets to take home and look over. And for those that have taken the course, please feel, um, I want you to feel comfortable teaching your teacher's aides how to implement these in your lesson plan. So I will start off by sharing my screen and showing you guys a video. Let me see.
Hello, and welcome to this Saddleback College Foundations course. This is going to be just a quick overview of the California Preschool Learning Foundations and the curriculum framework. The California Department of Education created the foundations and the framework with the goal of ensuring that all preschools had tools to offer high-quality programs. The foundations provide us with a clear understanding of the knowledge and skills that young children typically attain before they enter kindergarten. The frameworks present the strategies and approaches that we as teachers can use to enrich the learning and development of young children. The foundations and the frameworks each have 3 different volumes, and this covers 9 different domain areas for young children. The California Department of Education used current research. They did a lot of interviews with teachers in the field. They looked at standards from other states, and they looked at assessment tools. And over a period of years, they took all this information together and created a very comprehensive set of foundations and frameworks that really help us to promote children's learning and really guide us in our instructional practice. The different domain areas in the frameworks and the foundations are aligned with K through 12 curriculum standards. And those 9 domain areas include social and emotional development, language and literacy, English language development, mathematics, visual and performing arts, physical development, health, history and social science, as well as science. Saddleback College will be offering foundations courses in each of the 9 domain areas. And in fact, we'll be offering 10 foundations courses because we'll be splitting that visual and performing arts into 2 different foundations courses. The foundations describe the knowledge and skills and the competencies that young children typically attain before they enter kindergarten. And those competencies are delineated at both 48 months and 60 months of age, and that's about age 4 and age 5. And this corresponds to about when a child would complete their first year of preschool or their second year of preschool. And the understanding is that we would expect children to demonstrate these knowledge and skills when they had appropriate support within a high-quality preschool program. I wanted to give you a map of what the foundations look like, simply because there is a lot of different terminology that's used. We talked about the 9 different domains, which includes, the social and emotional development, physical development, language and literacy. In this case, we're looking at an example from the domain of history and social science. And within each domain, there are strands. And this strand is self and society. And within each strand, we have substrands, and we're looking in this case at culture and diversity. Within each strand, there may be 1 to multiple substrands. And again, the different competencies are expressed at both age 48 months and 60 months. And then below you'll see there are examples of what the child might demonstrate or exhibit in the classroom that would demonstrate their competency. And it's important to note that these examples are really just guidelines. With our very diverse populations of children, we will see children exhibit their competencies in different ways. But the examples are really to give us an idea of what level the child should exhibit. What the child actually does and says to demonstrate their competency will be as diverse as the children in our classrooms. Let's talk a little bit about the framework. The foundations kind of tell us what children should demonstrate to us, and the framework gives us those strategies to help support the development of those skills and competencies. The framework is designed to be developmentally appropriate. It is based on reflective and intentional teaching practices. It is designed to be both individually and culturally meaningful, and it's designed to be inclusive. And that's because we know that not all children learn the same way. In our classrooms, we're going to have children who have various learning styles, special needs, and differences in both language and culture. And all of the children in our care should be able to benefit from the strategies and approaches that we'll find in the curriculum framework. When we look at the framework in detail, we will see that for each of the domain chapters, it gives us guiding principles. It gives us ideas for environments and materials. There are stories from teachers in the field of both their successes and their struggles with these teaching to these domains. And then there's an awful lot of research that we can also look at. And I don't want you to be daunted by the amount of material that we have in our foundations courses. This is not a course where you're going to be reading to memorize. This is a course where you're going to be looking at your practice with young children and then looking at the different resources that the frameworks and the foundations have to offer that you can use in your classroom to really enhance the learning opportunities that you're providing to children. Many of you are working in classrooms where you need to show that your curriculum is aligning with either transitional kindergarten standards or Head Start standards. And the California Department of Education, I think, did just a great job of aligning the preschool foundations and frameworks with both the infant toddler developmental frameworks, with Common Core standards, California kindergarten standards, and Head Start standards. We'll be talking a little bit about this as we go through the course, but I wanted to provide this resource for you just at the beginning. So if you are in a situation where you need to show that your curriculum plans are aligning to other resources or standards or frameworks, that you're going to be able to show that.
Okay, I'm going to stop the video right there. And I am going to, okay, I am going to share my screen again. Let me see. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again and show, where is this at? There you go. Okay, so these are the domains and their strands. And substrands. So you have your domain and your strands, and you have social emotional, like you just saw, language and literacy. So you have one that says listening and speaking in different languages, because you will have children. There are English learners. That is very common. So you'll may have to adapt a lesson plan to accommodate an English learner, right? So then you have reading, writing, English language development, like I just said, mathematics, number sense, algebra function, measurements, and geometry, and so on and so on. I will be providing this with a little bit more information to help guide you as you make your own lesson plans. Again, this should not be new information um, for the teachers that have taken the course. I'm going to show you now an example um, of a lesson plan that I made in school for my curriculum class, right? So this is how this particular teacher wanted us to make our lesson plan. You will have different teachers that will have you do a lesson plan differently, and that's totally okay. Even ours in playground are gonna look a lot different. But I do want to show you this just because I did include the domains and the strands, right? So you have the domain that I chose, visual arts and performing arts. The strand was drama. The sub-strand was developing skills to create, invent, and express through drama. So the activity name is Children Will Create a Recycling Center at School. This activity was specifically for ages 4. The English learner students, meaning the kids that did not speak English. So English is their second language. I had to name a child. I had to include if I had any special needs kids. So I did put in my lesson plan that Anna has ADHD, and you'll see why that's important. You list your materials, and I listed mine right there because I got part of my activity from a YouTube. You always in your lesson plan, if you could have anything that is supplemental, like a YouTube link or an article, you always want to post those as well when you're turning in your lesson plans. So then I listed the step of the activity going from beginning all the way to end, right? Then I included an adaptation. So an adaptation to your lesson plan is what can happen when you have a special needs kids. So that could be from anything from like ADHD autism to someone in a wheelchair, right? So you think about that. If you did have a child that was in a wheelchair, how would you, as a teacher, help navigate this fake recycling center that you're setting up, right? You have to think about mobility issues. You have to think, well, this child won't be able to, bend over and pick cans of bottles up. So you have to think of those adaptations, right? So for mine, it included the activity will take place outside and provide plenty of room for movement, right? Because you are all ADHD kids, they want to run. They thrive in the outdoors, right? You don't want to just have a kid, especially if you have a kid with ADHD in a classroom, you may want to avoid always doing sit down activities. So you want to be able to adapt to those, including if that means you need different furniture, right? So think about those type of adaptations, right? For English language learners, the activity would include both English and Adrian's native language. So if you have kids that speak different language and you label things, make it in English and make it in their native language so that you can say both. So my previous school, we were a bilingual school. So every time I asked a student to do something, whether that was to sit down, I always repeated it in English and in Spanish. So I would say, Emery, please sit down on your chair. Emery, por favor, siéntate en la silla. So it just always, there are going to be times where you do not speak that language, right? So adaptations, what do you do? I had a kid that was Russian. Obviously, I do not speak Russian. I use Google Translate and it spoke for me. I used a mobile device. So you got to start thinking about those adaptations, especially with English language learners. So the other part of it was the interaction and strategies used in this activity. So students will bring recycling items from home, and other students will take on the role of recycling workers who will sort the recyclable papers, aluminum, and glass. So the interaction and strategy is how could I get parents involved in this activity that I'm going to be doing with kids? Sent out a newsletter saying like, hey, we're going to have a recycle activity in 2 days. Please send some recycling stuff to school on Monday. So that's an excellent bridge between school and families to be involved in what their child is doing at school. And then, as always, you want to ask open-ended questions because open-ended questions are how kids will communicate about your activity. That's how you're going to be able to see if they're learning, if they're catching on. So for this activity, I would ask questions like, what materials from the trash can be used for art and play? How do we separate these materials? What can be reused? How do people make less trash? So stuff, so things like that, right? And the last part was for my homework was to justify my citation. So meaning all of this planning, where did it come from? It came from the frameworks volume 2, right? Because at the end of the day, the frameworks is the foundation, the bones of our education. And then I will share my where's that? So this is my other lesson plan that I did for my practicum. And as you can see, it's a lot different than what I did for my curriculum class, right? So similar, you have the vet activity station, the ages, number of children that could be in this activity, your curriculum area. So this one, I added a curriculum area where I was going to do the activity. One thing that I did like about this teacher and how she asked us to make a section for knowledge, meaning what is that key words and key thing from my entire lesson plan that the kids are going to learn that I can continue to ask in open-ended questions. So you could see it's bolded here, the word veterinarian, the word where and tools. So my main focus for this lesson is I wanted to make sure that the takeaway was students knew that a doctor for animals is called a veterinarian and where to take their sick animals, like the location. It's called a veterinarian hospital. That was my key thing. And the tools that they use for animal when animals get sick, because sometimes they're similar. They use the stethoscope. So that was a word that I kept repeating throughout the lesson, right? Oh, it's a stethoscope. It checks the heart. Your doctor also checks your heart when you go to the doctor, right? So those were key words, the knowledge that I wanted the kids to take from this lesson. And I really like that this teacher really emphasized that part. And again, the skills, right? What are they using? They're role playing using abstract thinking, and they're using their motor skills to, help treat sick animals. Again, you list your materials, the step to this activity. So this teacher in particular wanted me to list every single step of the activity, meaning the minute I walk in the room, what I had to say and everything. We're not going to ask you to do that for our school, but when keep in mind when you do take your courses and you're asked to do um, your own lesson plans, teachers are going to have different demands for that. And then at the end, this teacher had us do an assessment evaluation, which is good for you to do on your own. So you could ask yourself, were the students able to learn who takes care of sick animals? So that's a reflection on you, right? So I had to ask myself, well, did the students learn that? Were the children able to successfully use the exam tools to examine the animals? So these questions are really for me to really think like, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't have brought these tools because these kids were too young to even hold a stethoscope. So these are more of a reflection for you when you do your lesson plan. And the truth is, sometimes you will fail and not realize, oh, well, I shouldn't have done that. And it did happen with me. I had a math lesson plan, and the kids did not want to have anything to do with me, and they were so bored out of their mind. And it does happen. And then I had to write a reflection paper on where I went wrong and things like that. But even when we failed, we learned something new, and that is a good thing. So and you could always ask questions and ask for help. The next part that I want to do is actually take you to the playground app, and we're gonna do a mock activity. So we're gonna do a mock, yeah, there you go. We're gonna do a lesson plan. So this is how you do lesson plans. Let me move this to the side. Okay, so you're gonna go to the playground app right here where it says lesson plans. You're gonna go create new lesson. We're gonna go from scratch. Okay, so I'm just gonna write make butterflies. We're gonna make butterflies. Make a butterfly, right? And I'm gonna pick, I am gonna pick the little turtles. And I don't have an internal note. And then I'm gonna save. Okay, I'm gonna save that. Lesson plan saved. I'm gonna add activity right here. And then, is it in there? Nope. Okay, so create new. There you go. Okay, so activity name, create butter, oops, create a butterfly. Okay, so brief description. So, oops, I'm gonna put students will create a butterfly using finger paint. Okay, so because it's finger paint, you could say this lesson can be done for ages 12 months to 36. It could be done for any age group. So students will learn about the cycle of a butterfly. We will read a book about the different stages of a butterfly. At the end of reading, students will sit down, oops, at the table and use finger paint to create their own butterfly using their hands and fingers. Teachers will provide googly eyes and other loose materials that the students can use to decorate. Okay, so materials that you're going to use is paper, oops, paint, googly eyes, and art, and other art and craft loose materials, some glue as well, um, and a book on the stages of a butterfly. Okay, so then you're going to go to category. So one of the things that I do want you to keep in mind is that I did not do this part correctly. I added the domains and I meant to add right here the substrands. And so I will try to get that fixed soon. But you're going to choose the location, whether it's indoor and outdoors. You could do this indoors or outdoors. I'm just going to put indoors. The group size, if it's individual, small group, medium, or group, whichever. I'm just going to do a medium-sized group. The duration of this activity, I always just give it 30 minutes just because when you're doing arts and craft, it could just, some kids take longer. So right here, so you can pick whichever. So you could say that this is an art. This could also be a social emotional or a STEM since it's science. So when you're doing lesson plans, sometimes you could either go either way. You want to make it more scientific, focus on the stages of a butterfly, right? You want to make it more arts and crafty, you could do that as well. Also remember that you could have a science lesson and an arts and craft, just like this one meshed together. So it doesn't matter really in the category where you put, especially if you're meshing them together like this, pick whichever. I'm just gonna put STEM just because that's more of a science. That's what I'm just gonna pick. So units right here, we don't use textbooks, so just please ignore. On the tags right here, you can pick as many as you want. So you could put, so fine motor, you are using your fine motor because you're creating your butterfly. It is also an arts and craft. It's also language and literacy because we are reading books, right? And when you're teaching, let's say if you have someone in your class that doesn't speak English, you'll want to pick keywords out of that book to help that child pick up the language, right? English language development as well, right? What else? Health, history, and then science. Bam. So those are all your tags. If you want to do a resource URL, like I said, that's where you put that information in. Any internal notes, you could do whatever notes you want. Remember when I said that our teacher made us do a reflection? You can come back later and then add an internal note to your lesson plan and just say, you know what, this activity didn't really go well with the infant class, or this activity was really boring for the summer camp kiddos, right? Because they're a lot older. So those are the internal notes that other teachers can read if they choose to do your lesson plan. Now, the thing that I like about this, do you see how I just kept it super vague, super simple? You can autocomplete with AI and make it a little bit more professional. And when you click that button, just watch the magic happen. Bam. And it just creates something more beautiful. So, And for the internal, it gave you even internal notes. So it says monitor each child's participation, ensuring they understand the butterfly cycle concept through both the reading and the painting process. Basically, the knowledge part of your lesson plan. The internal notes is basically just reiterating, just basically saying the same thing that I've been saying. Now you're gonna hit save. Okay. So bam is right here for Tuesday, May 20th, right? Random date, right? And a teacher could come and click on that and look at everything right here on the side. Okay. So the cool thing is you could come in and do add activity and it's right here. So any activities any lesson plans that people have added previously, you can go ahead and choose to do one, right? Because you could say like, you know what, I can't think of a lesson plan for this day. Let me just go see what other lesson plans are updated. And you can see that right there by looking right here. Oh, this one's 0 months to basically has no age limit. That's what I'm basically reading. Watercolor exploration. So you'll want to look at those things if you're in the 4-year-old class. If you wanted a 4-year-old specific lesson plan, you'll just go through those filters right here and you can add filters like, oh, I only want lesson plans with fine motor skill. Bam, it gives you those. Or I only want lesson plans in science. Bam, and it does that as well, right? So if you wanted to add an activity, bam, and now you have something for your class. So I'm going to stop sharing right there. Okay, so that is the basic steps in creating your own lesson plan and uploading them to Playground. If you still have any questions, feel free to email or give us a call, come into my office. I can totally help you. Feel free to ask other teachers as well because they are going through the same thing, navigating Playground as well. And if you have questions in regards to the California Preschool Curriculum Framework, we have those textbooks in the office for you to come and flip through. They have so much information that I don't expect anybody to have any of that memorized. Not at all. But if you create a lesson plan and you really want to just get into the nitty gritty of where that lesson plan falls through, those workbooks are going to be our Bible when it comes to how we educate children. So I really hope that you guys found this module helpful, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you.